Berlin, February 18, 1943. Sportpalast Arena, 7 to 10 p.m. Temperature, 3 degrees C. The air inside the hall is thick, not with smoke, but with breath. 20,000 people stand shoulder to shoulder, coats damp from melted snow, boots scraping concrete. The smell of wool, sweat, and fear hangs low, like fog trapped beneath the ceiling. Red banners fall from the rafters like blood-soaked curtains. A single spotlight snaps on. Footsteps echo. From behind the stage curtain, a man listens. He hears the crowd before he sees it. A low, animal murmur. A restless sound. Germany is losing the war now. Everyone in this room knows it, even if no one dares to say it aloud. Bombs fall on Berlin every night. Sons are dying at Stalingrad. Factories are ash. The illusion is cracking. The man steps forward. He is short, slight, one leg stiff, dragging faintly with each step. But when he reaches the podium, the room falls silent. Not because of fear, because of expectation. He leans toward the microphone. His voice cuts through the hall, sharp, precise, rehearsed to perfection. Do you want total war? The crowd explodes. Fists rise. Voices scream themselves raw. A tidal wave of sound crashes against the walls. This is not a general, not a soldier, not a man who ever fired a shot in anger. This is Joseph Goebbels. And in this moment, with nothing but words, he is more dangerous than an entire army. 2. Enemy POV, how the enemy saw him. Across the English Channel, British intelligence listens. In London, analysts sit hunched over radios, headphones pressing into their skulls. They hear the echo of the Sportpalast speech through static and distortion. One officer scribbles in his notebook, "Remarkable orator, fanatical, dangerous." To Allied commanders, Goebbels is not loud, he is calculated. American psychological warfare units study his broadcasts line by line. They note how he bends truth without breaking it, how he never promises victory, only survival, how he feeds fear, then redirects it. A U.S. intelligence report would later describe him as the most effective propagandist of the modern age, possibly the most dangerous civilian in the Third Reich. British pilots shot down over Germany remember his voice on the radio before missions. One RAF airman wrote in his diary, "We laughed at Hitler. We hated Goering. But Goebbels made the people believe. To the enemy, he was not a clown. He was a weapon. What they did not know was how fragile that weapon truly was." 3. Big question, thematic setup. Joseph Goebbels never commanded divisions, never planned invasions, never stood in a trench. Yet millions marched, millions obeyed, millions died, believing. So what does his life represent? The terrifying power of words? The transformation of failure into fanaticism? The way intellect can serve madness instead of reason? Goebbels was not born a monster. He was built, and the war did not create him. It merely gave him a microphone. 4. Early life, pre-war. Right, Germany. October 29, 1897. Joseph Goebbels enters the world small and sickly. His childhood is marked by illness. A severe bone infection leaves his right foot permanently deformed. He walks with a limp that will follow him for life. Other boys run. Joseph watches. They play soldier in the street. Joseph reads. Isolation becomes his companion. His parents are devout Catholics, strict, disciplined. The household values education, obedience, and suffering endured in silence. Young Joseph learns early that the world does not reward weakness. At school, he is brilliant, sharp-tongued, intellectually hungry, but socially invisible. Rejected by the army during World War I because of his disability, Goebbels experiences humiliation that cuts deep. While millions march to the front, he stays behind, The war ends. Germany collapses. And Joseph Goebbels feels cheated of glory, of purpose, of belonging. He turns to books, then to philosophy, then to writing. He earns a doctorate in literature, dreams of becoming a novelist, a poet, an intellectual star. But publishers reject him, again and again. Each rejection hardens him. Each failure whispers the same message. The world owes you something. 5. Entry into war. First steps into conflict. Goebbels does not enter the war through trenches. He enters through ideas. In the early 1920s, Germany is chaos. Inflation, street violence, political extremism. The Weimar Republic is fragile. Everyone is shouting. Joseph listens. Then he finds a movement that speaks his language, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. At first, he is skeptical. Hitler strikes him as crude, unpolished, too theatrical. But then Goebbels hears him speak, and something clicks. Here is raw emotion without refinement, rage without restraint. Goebbels realizes something instantly. Hitler has passion. He has words. Together, they could be unstoppable. He joins the party in 1924. Within months, he is writing speeches, editing newspapers, attacking enemies with venomous precision. Other Nazis notice. Hitler notices. 6. The underdog phase. Doubts, insults, underestimation. Inside the party, Goebbels is not respected. He is mocked. Too intellectual, too thin, too emotional. Old party members sneer behind his back. Stormtroopers call him the crippled writer. Even Hitler keeps him at arm's length. Rival propagandists dismiss him as a failed novelist playing politics. Foreign observers underestimate him completely. A French diplomat writes, "Goebbels is a fanatic scribbler. He will burn out." But Goebbels is watching, learning, adapting. He studies crowds like a scientist, tests phrases, measures applause, notes silence. He understands something others do not. Facts do not move masses. Emotion does, and he is about to prove it. Cliffhanger, end of Part 1. In 1926, Adolf Hitler gives Joseph Goebbels a city, Berlin, a hostile city, a communist stronghold, violent, unforgiving. It is a test. Most expect him to fail. Joseph Goebbels steps onto Berlin's streets, with nothing but posters, newspapers, and words. Within 2 years, the city will burn with his voice, and the legend will begin. Berlin, November 1926. Late evening, cold rain. The city does not welcome him. Berlin is loud, angry, and politically violent. Communist banners hang from balconies. Street fights erupt without warning. Police batons crack skulls nightly. Joseph Goebbels arrives with a suitcase, a notebook, and a mandate from Hitler. Turn this city red into black. At first, it is a disaster. Nazi meetings are broken up. Speakers are shouted down. Chairs are thrown. Goebbels himself is nearly beaten during one rally, forced to flee through a back door as fists slam into walls behind him. But Goebbels does not retreat. He adapts. He stops holding polite political meetings. He turns rallies into theater. Lights, music, marching columns, carefully timed entrances. Chants repeated until they burrow into the brain. He floods Berlin with posters, simple slogans, brutal imagery. Enemies are no longer political opponents. They are parasites, traitors, enemies of the people. Every clash becomes a story. Every injury becomes martyrdom. Every death becomes fuel. Goebbels writes headlines before events even end. And slowly, something shifts. Crowds grow larger, louder, more violent. Berlin begins to listen. 8. Rise to power. Fame. How he became a name. By 1928, Goebbels controls Berlin's Nazi press almost entirely. Newspapers, pamphlets, wall slogans, street rumors. He understands repetition better than any man alive. Say it once, it is ignored. Say it 10 times, it is noticed. Say it 1,000 times, it becomes truth. Election numbers climb. The Nazis remain a minority, but a terrifying one. Communists now plan their marches around Nazi countermarches. Police brace for riots whenever Goebbels schedules a rally. Foreign journalists notice the pattern. One American correspondent writes, "Berlin does not argue with the Nazis anymore. It reacts to them." Hitler promotes Goebbels to Reich propaganda leader. When the Nazis seize power in 1933, Goebbels is ready. He does not need to learn censorship. He invents it. Radio stations fall under his control. Film studios follow. Newspapers align or disappear. Books burn under torchlight. Choreographed, photographed, immortalized. By 1934, over 90% of German households own radios. Cheap, mass-produced, tuned permanently to state broadcasts. Goebbels speaks. Germany listens. Nein Dieder Federn, Santonadin, Sound. The myth phase, urban legends around him. By the mid-1930s, Goebbels becomes something else, not a man, a presence. Soldiers joke darkly. If Goebbels announces sunshine, bring an umbrella. Civilians whisper, "He knows what you think before you think it." Foreign embassies warn diplomats, "Nothing printed in Germany is accidental." Children grow up hearing his voice before they learn to read. Mothers quote his slogans without knowing where they came from. Enemy propagandists begin copying his techniques. Simplified language, emotional hooks, repetition. Some fail, because they lack what Goebbels has mastered: fanatic belief. He does not pretend to believe the lies. He does believe them. And belief, weaponized, is unstoppable. But propaganda feeds on victory. And soon, the victories will slow. Eastern Front, Stalingrad, January 1943. Temperature, 30°. Wind, slicing. Visibility, smoke and snow. The radios crackle, static. Then silence. Then a single broken transmission from the 6th Army. Goebbels listens. In Berlin, far from the frozen ruins, he stands inside the Ministry of Propaganda, surrounded by maps that no longer match the world outside. Red arrows advance where German flags once stood. Stalingrad is not just a battle. It is a truth bomb. For the first time, reality is louder than propaganda. German soldiers are starving. Horses are eaten. Ammunition runs out. Men freeze to death holding rifles. Goebbels knows the reports. He reads them all. He burns most of them. Because if Stalingrad is admitted as defeat, the spell breaks. Inside the ministry. Goebbels at war secretaries wait outside his office as he dictates. Not facts. Narratives. Heroic resistance. Temporary setbacks. Sacrifice for the fatherland. He orders newspapers to print maps showing advances that do not exist. Radio broadcasters are given scripts emphasizing endurance, not survival. The 6th Army stands firm. They fight so Germany may live. He removes the word retreat from official language. It no longer exists. But outside Berlin, mothers are no longer fooled. Letters stop arriving. Neighbors wear black. Goebbels senses it. The shift. For the first time, his enemy is not the Allies. It is truth. Neun Mann Dinin, Chantanan. The myth phase. Urban legends around him. By the mid-1930s, Goebbels becomes something else. Not a man, a presence. Soldiers joke darkly. If Goebbels announces sunshine, bring an umbrella. Civilians whisper, "He knows what you think before you think it." Foreign embassies warn diplomats, "Nothing printed in Germany is accidental." Children grow up hearing his voice before they learn to read. Mothers quote his slogans without knowing where they came from. Enemy propagandists begin copying his techniques. Simplified language, emotional hooks, repetition. Some fail, because they lack what Goebbels has mastered: fanatic belief. He does not pretend to believe the lies. He does believe them. And belief, weaponized, is unstoppable. But propaganda feeds on victory. And soon, the victories will slow. Eastern Front, Stalingrad, January 1943. Temperature, 30 degrees Celsius. Wind, slicing. Visibility, smoke and snow. The radios crackle. Static. Then, silence. Then a single broken transmission from the 6th Army. Goebbels listens. In Berlin, far from the frozen ruins, he stands inside the Ministry of Propaganda, surrounded by maps that no longer match the world outside. Red arrows advance where German flags once stood. Stalingrad is not just a battle. It is a truth bomb. For the first time, reality is louder than propaganda. German soldiers are starving. Horses are eaten. Ammunition runs out. Men freeze to death holding rifles. Goebbels knows the reports. He reads them all. He burns most of them. Because if Stalingrad is admitted as defeat, the spell breaks. Inside the ministry. Goebbels at war secretaries wait outside his office as he dictates. Not facts, narratives. Heroic resistance. Temporary setbacks. Sacrifice for the fatherland. He orders newspapers to print maps showing advances that do not exist. Radio broadcasters are given scripts emphasizing endurance, not survival. The 6th Army stands firm. They fight so Germany may live. He removes the word retreat from official language. It no longer exists. But outside Berlin, mothers are no longer fooled. Letters stop arriving. Neighbors wear black. Goebbels senses it, the shift. For the first time, his enemy is not the Allies. It is truth. Enemy POV. The Allies watch in London. British intelligence intercepts German broadcasts. One analyst remarks, "The louder Goebbels shouts, the worse it must be." American propaganda units note the change in tone. Less triumph. More destiny. More martyrdom. They understand what he is doing. He is not trying to convince the enemy. He is trying to hold Germany together. And for a time, it works. Stalingrad falls. February 2, 1943. The 6th Army surrenders. Over 90,000 German soldiers go into Soviet captivity. Goebbels receives confirmation early. He locks the door. No announcement is made for days. Then he steps onto the stage at the Sportpalast. And he does something unprecedented. He does not hide defeat. He weaponizes it. The Sportpalast speech. The crowd roars as he asks the question, "Do you want total war?" But listen closely. This is not confidence. This is desperation dressed as certainty. Goebbels frames disaster as purification, suffering as necessity, loss as proof of commitment. If Germany is bleeding, it must bleed harder. He turns catastrophe into a moral test, and millions accept it. The human cost behind the voice. Late at night, Goebbels writes in his diary, not for the public, for himself. The Führer is isolated. Reality presses in from all sides. We must harden the people. He does not write hope. He writes discipline. But cracks begin to show. Bombs fall closer to his home. His children sleep in bunkers. His wife, Magda, senses the end approaching, even if she does not say it aloud. And Joseph Goebbels, master of illusion, cannot lie to himself anymore. The war cannot be won, but it must continue. Cliffhanger, end of Part 3. By 1944, Germany is burning from the inside out. Cities collapse. Allies land in the west. The Red Army closes in from the east. Goebbels faces an impossible task: convince a dying nation that death is victory. And as the Reich crumbles, he prepares his final performance, one that will end not in words, but in silence. Berlin. Winter, 1944-45. The city is no longer a capital. It is a wound. Buildings stand hollowed out, ribs of concrete exposed to the sky. Smoke never fully clears. The ground trembles daily under Allied bombs. Joseph Goebbels walks through the ruins with his head held high, cameras carefully positioned, angles chosen to show defiance instead of devastation. But at night, the performance ends. In his diary, his handwriting grows erratic. Friends are dead. Generals are gone. The illusion of control slips through his fingers. He writes about exhaustion, about hatred for weakness, about fear he cannot admit publicly. He visits hospitals where boys without legs stare at ceilings. He gives speeches about sacrifice, then leaves. Letters from soldiers' families pile up on his desk. He does not answer them. The myth cannot answer questions. And the man behind the myth is breaking. Downfall, turning of tide. April 1945, Berlin. Altitude, underground. The Führer bunker, a concrete tomb beneath the city. Here, Goebbels becomes something unprecedented. Chancellor of Germany. For one day, Hitler is gone. Suicide. The Führer he worshipped, the man whose voice he amplified into godhood, ends his life alone. Goebbels does not flee. He refuses every escape route. The Allies are meters away. Soviet artillery shakes dust from the ceiling. Officers beg him to leave, to survive. He refuses. Without Hitler, Germany has no meaning. Without Germany, Goebbels has no purpose. He looks at his 6 children sleeping in their bunks. They trust him. That is the most terrible power of all. 13. Final moments. Last scene style. April 30th, May 1st, 1945. The bunker smells of fuel, damp concrete, and poison. Magda Goebbels kneels beside the children. She tells them they are going on a journey. Joseph watches. He does not speak. One by one, the children are poisoned in their sleep. The future is erased. Later, Goebbels steps outside into the ruined garden above the bunker. The sky over Berlin is gray, silent, empty. No crowd, no microphone, no applause, only the sound of distant gunfire. Joseph Goebbels shoots his wife. Then himself, the greatest propagandist in history, dies without an audience. 14. Aftermath. What history says about him. After the war, investigators study his work. Historians dissect his techniques. Psychologists analyze his methods. They conclude, he did not invent propaganda. He perfected it. Radio, film, language, repetition, emotion. Modern political messaging still bears his fingerprints, but stripped of power, stripped of illusion, stripped of victory, he leaves nothing behind. No monuments, no legacy worth defending. Only warnings. 15. Final reflective ending. Punchline. Joseph Goebbels believed words could conquer reality. And for a time, they did. But reality always speaks louder in the end. History remembers his speeches. Germany remembers the ruins. He wanted to control the truth. The truth buried him instead.